Thank you for making it happen, because today's rain was terrible, and we have like 35 people register, and I think like 13 or 14 people make it. So I think there would be much higher number of people could make it. So today we have a special guest. I know John for more than 10 years here, which is quite unusual in Singapore, because in Singapore some people come and leave and changing the job, but John was always working with high executive positions. And I met him when he worked for Publicis. It's a well-respected, huge agency. And now John works for 1990. He's a group managing director, so he's in a big role. And basically, John was one of the first users of our product, SOMONITOR. And to be honest, he was one of the most enthusiastic, because he loves gadgets. And later he'll probably show you one of his Ray-Ban glasses. Yeah, he got the latest one. Yeah, the Meta glasses. Yeah, you can show it. And the case looks pretty cool because it has some LED sensor inside.
I thought since we're talking about AI, this is an example of how AI is going to consumer product, right? There we go.
So what
This session is not sponsored by Meta, by the way. Yet, hopefully in the future. So keep it to 1 minute.
Pretty scary demo the other day, like some Harvard kid figuring out who people were just by looking at them.
Now I'm taking a video, right? The lights on.
This is the reason why we don't ask people to introduce this man, because we already know who you are by just looking at you through the glasses.
Yeah, so we can check all your profiles, LinkedIn. No, I mean, looks pretty cute. So basically, I know John because he's an innovator and he helped me on different projects. And when we gave him the access to our platform, it was like, wow, how many things I can do with it. And he was one of the most active users, and that's why we decided to invite him, because as a company who creates some software, I think we are a bit, I would say, we are biased towards it, because we think it's one of the best one. But we wanted to invite a person from the side, and especially John. He has 25 years experience in different roles, both from agency side, from media, creative, as well as the customer side, the client facing. Which I think is extremely important, because sometimes you speak with the person who has like 5-10 years experience from the agency perspective, and they can't probably understand or see the different angle from the customer perspective. So that's why when John agreed to come to this session, that was a great thing. So we'd love to learn more about John, but this is a small round of applause from John. And yeah, if you don't mind, John, can you introduce yourself? Maybe I missed some parts, especially whole of the government contract, which was, I think, the biggest account in South Asia you worked on, and maybe some other details which I missed.
Thank you everyone for coming. Sorry, my voice is a bit short today. I get really conscious whenever I tell people that I worked for 25 years. After a certain stage, we all know there's some of us of the same vintage. We go through life, I wish I had 5 years experience. I wish I had 10 years experience. After 15, you stop counting, right? So 25 years, I've been very blessed. As Vitaly has said, I started my career in Publicis, French agency, situated right in Champs-Élysées, which is the main street of Paris. I was in the creative side of the business. And then towards the late 90s, when the first .com happened, I put up my hands and I joined Tribal DDV, right? One of the founding members of Tribal. I went into digital advertising. And that was quite a surprising move, because I swore to myself, I don't want anything to do with digital anymore, right? Because I went to engineering school. I did a diploma in engineering and electronics engineering and computer engineering. Then I hated it so much, I did my degree in business. So I swore off computers until the .com. Oh, this is the future, right? So I forced myself to get back into that. Fast forward, I joined DBS. I was there with the Internet Banking Group for about 4 years. I rolled up the first e-commerce solution in DBS back in 2003 to 2007. I came back to the agency world in about 2007 because I realized at the time Friendster was huge. Some of us remember Friendster, yeah? Some of us we do. Some of you only know TikTok or Xiaohongshu, right? But no judgment there. Friendster came about and said, oh, social media is huge, and Facebook started coming in, and Google, right, became huge at one stage, right? 15, 16 years ago, search engine marketing. And the bank was like, I'm not sure right? Because there's a lot of legal compliance and all kinds of things which need to be sorted. So I came back to the agency world, right? I was very lucky to have worked with Miguel then, right? We crossed paths in our career. But fast forward today, after serving 8 years in Publicis again, my last role working on the whole of government Singapore media business, which is 9-figure business. My whole team is working with you, Chris, right now. Sentosa, I decided that the opportunity really is in social and influence, which is why 6 months ago I decided to move. So I've been moving around different parts of the business through curiosity, through interest, and today, when Vitaly and Alex kindly invited me to have a chat, I thought maybe I could share some of my experience. Right? I'm by no means an expert, so I'm going to give you my experience as a user.
I'm not running this session, but you got 4 bronzes, 5 silvers, and 2 gold Agency of the Year awards. And you're also a black belt volunteer in the Martial Arts Academy, so I'm wondering how much your black belt helped you to win the 4 bronzes, 5 silvers.
I'm a man of peace, man. Miguel,
like a customer development work, right?
Man of peace. After a certain age, when I teach kids, and I tell them it's not about fighting, it's about teaching you mobility, control, and balance. Right? So martial arts is about that. Okay, thank you.
No, with all these remarks from Alex, I have the feel that we are a Joe Rogan podcast because one interview and another person is just fact checking and so on. Okay, I mean that's quite interesting because I know Miguel. I know John for more than Miguel as well, but I know John for more than 10 years, and again, even some of these facts from his biography are quite surprising to me. So I mean, you've seen lots of changes on the market. You've seen new trends, you've seen new hype things that happen. I'm just curious, what do you think about artificial intelligence? Because it was a long time ago when we started talking about AI, and again, Alex can also share his experience on machine learning and so on. But again, it seems like, do you feel that this trend, which is happening right now, is it going to sustain, and how this trend and this technology going to help and currently used by marketing media agencies through AI?
You have a pretty good voice, so if you need
Thank you for the question. It's a multi-layered question, as you can imagine. And I don't want to sound like I know everything, because Alex there has got 3 PhDs, right? I was told. So he's the brains, I'm not. I'm the marketing guy. But it's a good question. Do I see AI as something that's for the future? Of course. It's a loaded question, I would imagine. Yes, but is it something really, really new? I remember the answer is that I think 7 years ago, I put out a post and I said, Simisai is also AI, because at that time, Simisai is very colloquial. So every damn thing is AI, right? Because at that time, 6-7 years ago, there was a huge interest, and then it went quiet because Metaverse came into the whole picture, right? And of course, Facebook became Meta, and NFTs, and it crashed and burned, and AI came back again. But go back was 91, 92, 93, right? When I was an engineering student, as I mentioned, right? I was doing electronics and computer engineering. I was really exposed to the world of fuzzy logic, right? Fuzzy logic is probably the precursor of AI today, but at that time I was talking about smart fridges. I was designing circuits to alert people when the eggs are low or the milk is going bad, right? It went as back as that. So I mean, we've made a lot of headway, right? 30 years with Nvidia now, killing everyone with the chips and stuff. So the short answer is definitely. It's the question of how, and it's the question of what does AI mean to you, right? Whether you are in the creative side of business, whether in the media side of business, whether you're a client, depending on whether you are in a business of tourism. I imagine Chris, right? Miguel gaming, or any business you are, or MediaCorp as a media agency, right? So I think it really depends, but definitely there's a play for everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. And can you probably specify, because over the last 2-3 years, I think AI become either essential or quite crucial part of every marketing pitch or every media campaign. So I'm just wondering, what are the key tools you were using working at the and you currently using working inside the agency?
Okay, so although I'm in a social space, I'm in influencer marketing space today. there are three things that my job requires of me, right? It requires me to look at strategy, right? How to solve client problems, pain points. It requires me to look into the creative part of it, right? For you who are new in the marcoms, right? Creative can mean how do you position certain things for your audience and what's the message you want to convey. I look at it from a media perspective, right? Pay for and earn, right? So I look into different tools, right? So let's talk about the one that everyone uses. I'm quite sure, ChatGPT, right? Everyone uses ChatGPT, right? It's fantastic for me for strategy. And you say, oh, how do you do strategy? You just ask, put in the client brief and ask ChatGPT to tell you the answers. The answer is not so easy, right? Sometimes when you have a lot of reading materials and you just want summary, right? You have tens and 20s and 30, 40 pages and volumes of information. You just feed it in and say, give me 10 key points, right? Sometimes I use it to help test propositions, right? Because with the creative team, with the media team, we talk about understanding the audiences and say, okay, let's test these propositions. We train, or rather we prompt the ChatGPT and we get non-biased, hopefully, right? Everything's biased, right? Response on how to do that. Then on the creative side, right? We use different tools. I found that Mid-Journey has been very, very helpful for the creative team. In old days, I remember back in 1998, when we talk about storyboarding, it's all hand-drawn, right? Or in the 2000s, it's all people try to use Photoshop and what have you. But now ChatGPT can do pretty decent storyboard keyframes, and you just need to do a bit of digital imaging and put the faces, put Asian faces, put consistent faces, and you get a pretty nice storyboard. But that's not all. We use also things like Luma. If some of the clients say, hey, can you make this frame animate so that I can show my boss how it does animate. For pictures we have used voice generator, music generator to fill in the gaps. We have used HeyGen. We have used to generate avatars, right? To show that, hey, if you have this single language, not a worry. We can upload a picture of your boss, and then he can speak in Thai, Vietnamese, and what have you, because there are solutions there, right? So there are different ways we do this. And from a media perspective, obviously, sometimes as a media people, if some of you work with agencies in the media scene, you've got so much data, so much reports, right? And you don't want that executive to burn his or her own weekends reading reports and generating, coming up with analysis, which could be wrong, right? So these days we just feed in graphs, we feed in charts, and we say give me top lines, and we take it from there. So from a strategic point of view, from a creative point of view, from a media perspective, this is how we use GenAI today.
Thank you very much. And from my own experience, because I also worked in, aside from AI, I also worked for Metaverse, virtual reality. We have a pitch for one of the projects for Sentosa, and what we built, there was one of the idea we were playing something like mermaid ambassador for Sentosa, and the agency asked us how fast you can build it, or like to show something to the customer. I think it took us like maybe half a day to do all the sketches, mock-ups, animation, and show it to the customer, while previously it probably took us like maybe 1 or 2 weeks to get probably 20 or 30% of the results we got here within half a day. So it helps to visualize your idea fast, and for whether you're agency or whether you're customer and you have some internal stakeholders, it definitely helps you to persuade people much faster and showcase your ideas. Okay, that's great. And again, Alex will have some demo later on. I just want to check, and because again, I came from the background of metaverse, virtual reality, and I think the huge mistake, or the largest mistake, what I've seen in metaverse and NFT and Web3 and so on, people were talking about possibilities, opportunities, and what system can achieve theoretically. And most, I would say 90-95% of my LinkedIn posts is about like how amazing this technology and how we can achieve how much we can achieve it. While very few talk about limitation, very few talk about what are the limitations, what are the challenges we have. And I would be curious to know what's your take on limitation and challenges in AI, using for marketing agency, using from agency side, using probably for customer side, because everyone talks about possibilities, but what are the real implications, what are the real challenges the companies and the agencies will face once they decide to try this technology?
That's a very good question. And I'm sure if any one of you has used ChatGPT, you know the limitations. After a while, sounds the same. Are you lying? you wonder if they're hallucinating, right? That's the word, right? And often I have to tell him, do not lie, to make sure that he's not making up stories, right? But it's very interesting. I think this is a very, very good question. Let me think. I think the first thing I would say is that although I started off by saying that AI is the future, right? AI today, as is, it's not the silver bullet. It's not perfect. Okay? We have to recognize that. Okay? If we are not recognizing that, we will be subscribing to the hype, right? So it's always good to, in my life, right? I mean, Vitaly and I, 10 years ago when we worked together, we were looking at AR, VR before anyone did. We always talk about, is this practical, right? Is this web-based, non-web-based? Device cost and stuff. I think in any technology you have to ask yourself these questions. So again, AI is not perfect. It's got its limitations. I think just like everything else, I think that the first thing that you all would probably agree if you use AI is you remember this phrase. I think it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So which is why even my kids 2 or 3 years ago when they came back to school, Dad, we are using ChatGPT. Our teachers are asking us to use ChatGPT for comprehension, and I got really annoyed. I said, what? You haven't even mastered English language. Why is Ministry of Education asking you to do things on AI? I didn't understand the reason. Now I understand it more, right? You could have a kid prompting something on ChatGPT, and you can have an adult, you can have Alex prompting it. The results, I can guarantee, are very different, right? So garbage in, garbage out. That's the main thing. From where I'm sitting today as Group Managing Director of 1990 and Narratives, which is primarily concerned with social media, right? When I went into the company 6 months ago, I said, we are not just a social media agency or influencer marketing agency. Our job is to socialize trust, right? You know what does socializing trust mean, right? Brands put a lot of premium on trust. Government agencies put a lot of premium on trust, because if you lose the trust from people, then you're done, right? So in the same way, I think the other limitation is, and what keeps me up at night, is how do I use Gen AI to create stories for brands, right? So that people and platforms trust the brand or the government agency, right? How do I do that? Because there's so many things can go wrong, right? You've seen maybe Singapore prisons they have used Gen AI to come up with ads, which people are like, oh my God, are you sure this is the standard, right? We all read and heard about how Gen AI produces not very good fingers. I've personally seen it. I was trying to do an animation with Luma, and when we were trying to do 2 hands catching together, and then the hands become like octopus, the fingers wrap around stuff, right? But you also read probably the Metas of the world and the TikTok of the world. They probably have some terms that says, hey, you know what? You need to declare if it's Gen AI generated content, right? Because they're trying to make sure that they can pick this information. They can protect themselves against any complaints that, hey, you know what? You're propagating this information and fake news and what have you, right? I mean, deepfakes is Gen AI as well. Deepfakes are pretty scary. So that's what keeps me a lot awake. So 2 things. Again, I just wrapped up. One is garbage in, garbage out. Number 2, how do you make sure that you use Gen AI in a way that's transparent, that people know that this is not a deliberate attempt at misinformation or creating something because it's cheap and nobody puts a human being behind it to think through the messaging. In Singapore, everyone knows the term OB markers, right? out-of-bound markers, right? Social, political, religious, and stuff like that, right? I mean, Gen AI can, if you fire and forget, right? Sometimes Gen AI doesn't catch certain things, right? That can be bad for your brand.
Okay. Thank you for this elaborated answer. I'm just curious, like, because you were talking about building the trust, I want to ask you a question that make it a bit more complicated for you because you're very smooth in answering my question. Like, how do you see the building trust or like building this success story when the agency and the customer, so two sides, agency and customer, how are they their journey looks similar or how different they are, and how do you foresee like the steps for both agency and the brand to build this trust and to build the effective but successful AI strategy?
Yes, you're probably one of the few people I can ask because some people work on the brand side, agency, you try both has and kind of done most mentoring, meeting different kind of startups. I'm just curious, like your perspective, etc.
Okay. I guess this is my time. I earn my paycheck right now. No paycheck. I want to talk about SOMONITOR. The check is not in the mail, right? I'm doing this because I believe it. So I use SOMONITOR as an example. I've used it for pitches. I've used it for client work, right? In the past, when I was in an agency world, we're always curious. Oh, what do people talk about us as a brand? I want to know what do people say about it. So what do? You go to the Brand Watch of the world. You go to Map Water of the world. These are social listening too, right? I found there are gaps. I mean, today obviously they're better, right? Some of the gaps include, they can't tell local language, they can't catch nuances. You get more disproportionate amount of neutrals than positive or negatives, and you're like, right? It's frustrating. Now, when I look at SOMONITOR, and again, as Alex and Vitaly has pointed out, 25 years later, benefit of experience and hindsight, when I look at that, right? When I first used SOMONITOR, I thought, okay, everything starts with strategy. Right? I want to create a piece of work, a comms piece of work for the client. And I said, okay, I need to understand the audience. I need to understand the competitors. I need to understand what they have done. Right? Who can help me do that? So when I tested SOMONITOR, I was pleasantly surprised by a few features. Right? Let's say pretend that today I'm STB. Right? As STB Singapore Tourism Board, I've got vested interest in making sure that people go to Jewel at Changi. I've got vested interest in making sure that people go to Gardens by the Bay. I've got vested interest in making sure people go to Mandai and even Sentosa, right? Chris, sorry, I'm putting a tough spot, but it's always easier to make references to real challenges. And I was like, okay, I want to know the difference of what content has engaged people better. Right? In all these things. And I found out that, say, if I go and look at 1 year's data for Gardens by the Bay, I know that my content is really, it resonates with travelers, of course, no surprises there, and nature lovers. Okay? But when I contrast that with Jewel at Changi, I'm giving you a very simple example because it can't be wrong, right? I realized that my audience and the content that resonates with them for travelers and for shoppers. Jewel Changi, the shopping, right? But of course, when I look into sea aquariums, it will be travelers and events because Genting bringing a lot more concerts and what have you, right? So I said, oh, this is quite interesting, right? So even with travelers, I know what kind of travelers this can tell me. Right? And it's got a fantastic, this little box really piqued my attention. This is really, really good. And what else can I do about it? Right? So then from a strategic perspective, say, okay, all right, I know this is my audiences and this is how it differs from my competitors. Next thing, I want to put on my creative hat. So remember I talked about creative strategy, creative and media, right? I put on my creative hat. Okay. Now I need to brief my team. Right? If I was to tell them, please come up with an idea for travelers and shoppers, travelers and nature lovers, travelers and event goers, they're going to give me rubbish. Again, remember? Garbage in, garbage out. So I said, I need to build personas. And and this is me trying to build the deck to present to my client as well. Chris, maybe this is for you, for example, right? So I'm like, okay. So what are some of the personas? Obviously, what SOMONITOR has done is they have great taxonomy. They have built different personas in depending on data points. They're able to tell me, say, maybe Gardens by the Bay. I'm talking to explorers and creators, right? And then, why explorers? Oh, because they're travelers and because they love nature. So makes sense, right? Why are they creators as well? Oh, maybe blah blah blah, right? So you've got to ask all these questions. So suddenly, what happens is, my brief gets richer, right? From a strategic perspective, the way I look at audiences, the way I look at competitors. I'll get back into competition in a bit. Suddenly, it gets richer, right? And then my creative team, when I write them the brief, they're able to come up with better work. And if you take another step, go to the media world, right? So, how am I going to do this, right? Today I said, I'm an influencer and social media space now. I still do paid ads, but I want to make sure my next step is to find people with, the term is, I want to find lookalikes, people with same interests, right? And same passion points, right? So I've got a different database in my narratives platform. I've got 1.5 million. I'm not selling you narratives right now, but I've got a database of 1.5 million people. I've got data cards that tell me where they're from, their interests, and the brands they're affinity to. And I take this information and I go back to my platform and say, this is exactly the profile I'm going to search for, right? So that's why I found SOMONITOR very exciting, right? So I mean, one of the things that excites most media people, right? I'm a little bit more, but most media people, but it helps as well is the cloud, right? But have you shown the very, very interesting thing of creative? Where you could see the heat maps of creatives. Do we have something like that? Now this blew my head off, right? Because as a creative agency, you want to see, all right, we're going to test the ads. But creative is always a blind spot for a lot of people because it's subjective, right? What SOMONITOR has done, Alex will tell you the science behind it. It is able to create heat maps against different social media posts that's put up, and then you can really analyze, why is this engaging more? Again, going back to engagement, right? Usually you imagine you see a bell curve of what content that most people like. But that's not what I see as well. I want to go to the 80 percentile, the 90 percentile. I want to see what has created virality, right? So I use this tool to understand the level of creative work as well, and hope to replicate that, right? So if I was STB, if I was the client, I'll be very interested in that. On the flip side, of course, if I was the agency and if I know better, right? Again, unfortunately, agency business today is broken up into the creative side of it, the PR side of it, the social side, and not the media side. If they don't talk to each other, then it's really hard to use this tool. It still works for the reasons I mentioned, but if you're a client, this is fantastic for you. I hope that answers the questions.
Yeah, it's quite detailed answer.
We have discussed before this event, we discussed some of the questions. And one of the questions was what to do for the agencies for the next 5 to 10 years to stay relevant and successful. But I would probably rephrase it because I feel that behind every brand or every agency there are humans, and I will rephrase it next way. What to do and what technology to use and what trends to follow now in order in 5 to 10 years to stay relevant for the market centers and not to get fired and be replaced by any machine or any artificial intelligence. What would be your advice for the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay, this is a tricky question. Because fundamentally, I've done interviews before with TSL, right? The Smart Local, and they ask me, what's the trends? And my answer then, and the answer today I'll give you, I hate trends, right? I recognize that you need to follow trends, but trends come in waves, right? It's almost like, let's talk about NFT and metaverse, right? It lasted for what, 1 year, 2 years? I mean, it's still important, right? Vitaly and I, we were talking to a few clients who are now ready to adopt VR, right? Again, practicality of it, right? You don't need just Apple Vision Pro. You choose iPad for whatever reason, for these days you can use web-based VR, which is why the Sentosa works because visitors just use their mobile phones, right, to unlock a solution, AR, augmented reality solution that is tied in with Generative, for example. I think that was what he did.
Just the final thing I just want to correct that. It was initially connected to OpenAI, and I think we are the first or the second company worldwide to manage to do it. But eventually, because of the the technology is unclear yet, I think it was either used or this feature was slightly removed from the final launch project. So just to show like how brands sometimes, and for the reason they are cautious about the end users and their final experience. I think talking about change. Yes, sorry.
So I don't like to follow. On one hand, I say like don't jump into trends for the sake of jumping into, but you need to follow. I'll give you a very recent example why I said that. A big bank came to me and said, look, I love your work. You were from working in this bank before. I won't say which bank, but go to my LinkedIn, you know. Can you come up with something that for this solution? And we came up with good stuff. They love it. And then the next conversation was, AI is huge. Can you use AI? Show us how this works. Have you integrated AI into that? Oh my God. Okay. First, I'm giving you a solution that tells stories about your solutions. It's not B2C, it's B2B. All right, and because you need to build trust, right? You have all these great topics. But suddenly, what's more important to you is to use AI, right? What do you want me to do? I mean, I can do this. I mean, I can get your boss to use agent, and then I can make him speak in multiple languages. If you want to. I can, because you don't have budgets, you don't want to do a videography work, you want to use AI to animate or bring it to life like videos, and then we tested with Luma, that's when we found the fingers go away, and then I have to tell this client, hey, but do you know if you put it up there, is your brand ready to tell people that this is done by AI? Because certain brands are precious, right? They don't want anyone to know it's AI generated. Right? They only do that because, I'm not saying this brand, because it's cheap and fast. Right.
I think I just want to add because what feedback I thought it's more like lack of effort. So people didn't spend as much time or resources and something. So it's kind of a bit lazy work. I mean, that's the perception.
Yeah, they think it's a silver bullet. You can turn things around quickly and cheap, but it's not the case. If you want quality stuff, okay, let's caveat it as that. There's a lot of work to be done. So I wouldn't go to brands, but I definitely would say that I wish. My wish list. I always identify myself as a marketeer first, although I spent over 20 years in the advertising and media and creative agency side of it. I'm only 4 years in BBS. I identify as a marketeer. And I said, I always say even to my kids. My elder son is 16. He's joining Neon next year in MassCom. I said, look, you should. If you go in because you love creative, you should know a little about media as well. You should also know a little bit about social, right? So just like any profession aspect. I think as a client side, you have the benefit of doing that, but sometimes when you get into agencies, you're siloed, right? My advice is make sure that you learn about the other side of the business, right? SOMONITOR is one example, one tool, which I thought was fascinating because you can apply it on different parts of the business. Whether it's strategy, creative, or media. So I would say, be cross-functional, right? Or if you're a sport person, cross-train, right? Please do that. That's my advice. 5 to 10 years from now, because I always tell people as well, what you do today prepare you for the next job, right? Your next job is going to require 80% of the knowledge today. The other 20 you're going to learn on that job, right? But you need cross-transferable skill. So Gen AI is the next best thing, I suppose. Next big thing that everyone needs to get their hands on. And if you are not doing it because you think it's not real and stuff like that, I think have good conversations with the agency, because at the end of the day you want to make sure you maintain trust. To do that you need quality work. You can't expect agencies to turn around 24 hours and get the best work.
Thank you. And the very last question to stay on track, because you mentioned about your son, and I have kids. Alex has 3 kids, and I was recently mentoring. I was recently mentoring a group of students. I think they're like 15, 16 years old. They're not even students, they're scholars. They are part of UWC because a friend of mine asked me. And they're looking to enter artificial intelligence field. They're looking at metaverse. They're looking like for the ways how to kind of kickstart their career. So I'm just wondering because that's not just the question for you, but probably the question for different ministries, for the government and so. But how do you see shall we work on raising the new talents in AI? How we should raise the talents for the country or in the talents inside the company or inside our agency?
Wow. Interesting. Funny story, but real story. When I was doing my whole of government business, and everyone said, "Oh, John, this is John. He runs the whole of government." I said, "No, I don't run the whole of government. That's Lee Hsien, Lee Hsien Loong at the PM. I run the whole of government media business, so I don't make representations from government." But if I was to answer it from a perspective as a mentor, like you know, I volunteer my time for mentoring SG. I speak to kids who are my son's age. You know, I speak to kids as practice because my own sons don't listen to me. And only when I say, "Oh, I'm talking to year 2 Republic, Nechayev Poly students," they oh, okay, whatever, right? But yes, definitely going into there, actually encouraging them to get their feet wet is very important, right? Just like how my kids, to their own fascination with games, they learn how to do video editing because at the time they were 8 and 9 years old. They were playing in guilds, right? And part of the parcel of belonging to a computer guild is to create content. So they teach themselves, right? So again, I think encouraging them to get their feet wet is important. I think the government is really focusing a lot on this. You look at MDDI, the new MCI, right? They have got many programs on there. Many years ago, I remember 8 years ago when I spoke to I can't remember whether there's EDB or MPI. Actually, it's probably MPI. And they say, "Oh, and right now we're going to focus a lot more on creative business, what do you think is important?" I mentioned AI at that stage because that was when CMSI was AI. Right? That's it. It's very important, right? So yeah, please support your partners. SOMONITOR has got fantastic product. I'm not paid to do this, I swear to you. Yeah.
Based on my experience, based on your kind of previous background, I don't think we can afford to pay.
John attracted by the pizza behind. So.
Yeah, just for pizza. No, but seriously, if you are interested in growth, if you're a marketeer or you're a business owner, the only way to grow is to get your feet dirty, right? Don't expect people to teach you. By the time people teach you, like when I look into the curriculum and when I get invited to schools to talk about digital marketing, they are only parroting what Meta is talking about, what Google is talking about in using the products. But if you really want to be ahead or be abreast of technology, use it. That's my advice.
I hope I answered the question.
Okay, any question from the side? Yeah.
AI influences.
Very good question. We tested some because we thought, with AI avatars and stuff, we'll be stupid to not try to create our AI influencers. Obviously, there were some successful use case in Spain, right? It's beautiful. Yeah, everyone knows that, right? But we realized, well, we can do it. You know what? The platforms reject it. So I talked to a few people, and when they try to do live streaming and live selling, it's 24/7. If you can get an avatar to sell 24/7, you can imagine you can make more money, right? So they tested it, and they got blocked on Shopee, Lazada, and TikTok because they recognize that it's AI. So so that's a limitation. Okay.
So what do you think about, say, creating an avatar myself, putting your brain knowledge, recreate a job?
I wouldn't want it, number one. I've got no aspirations to live for it, but one of my things before I joined this company, I said, hey, I've got so much experience. I want to capture knowledges. I want to give, not say TED Talk, but I want to monetize my experience through curriculums and stuff like that, right? Why don't I I write scripts, I hate to see myself and listen to myself in the camera. Some of you might know what I mean. You take yourself and oh, I sound like this. So I said, I take a picture of myself. Why don't I just do scripts? And hey Jen, Synthesia, they all do that, right? You upload all the scripts, the guy becomes the version. Because I've thought of that. But I think that's probably the future of learning. And this is some of the things that I've been talking to people in different schools. And I said, look, you should consider this because it's not going to take away your dean's. Professor Alex is still going to have a job, but he can do tutorial because there's facial recognition, and they understand natural language, and he can say, no, maybe you should do this. No, that's wrong. I hope I answered that.
Yeah, the few of my courses actually speech synthesized because I like that sounding much better than my own voice.
Yeah. I want to go on holidays, right? I don't want to be teaching 24/7.
I just want to add because my company worked on the first or second because we are sharing the first one with Alex, virtual influencer here in Asia. We work for AirAsia AWAP. But that was, I think, a bit ahead of the time because we launched it in 2019 right before lockdowns and all the negative press. But what I wanted to say that there was some very well-funded projects on the market. One of them was Nechayev, which I think has generated like 50, 60, 70 million dollars, and they have pretty impressive campaigns. I think they've done this Calvin Klein campaign and so on. And the thing is, I don't think it kind of progresses a lot because people are thinking that you can generate this influencer, this is famous, good-looking like guy or girl, and they will represent your product or some idea behind it. For me, I just don't feel that it works. Like many people on LinkedIn who are not very deep into this topic, they think that this is the way to go. I don't believe that. I feel that it's more niche application, and one of the niche application again, probably someone is already working. If I had more time or some good project, we'll probably also working on it. It's more like what you mentioned about John. We have the request from one or two funeral companies who wanted to create this digital twins of the person who died. So you can, especially the person who died, because of cancer, and he or she technically said, and they want to preserve some of their stories. They preserve some of their intellect, and maybe for their children, grandchildren, to have a possibility to connect to their grandfather. So that's one of the niche applications which I feel has more potential than just influencer. Just because you can justify the value to be connected with the person who you can't be connected. That's much more than just influencer, some random generated influencer, which was created somewhere. Maybe I'm mistaken, but again, based on my 12 years experience in VR, AR, and metaverse, I feel that more niche application where we can see obvious value, and personal connection. I think that's more important. However, that may sounds like a script from Black Mirror series.
Well, that's really interesting because that's a good use case, right? And you keep someone alive to have conversations. Sometimes I don't know.
Yeah, I always believe that technology should connect people, not disconnect. And again, for social media, it's nice until it becomes your obsession, until it becomes something like when you compare yourself. So same here, if you can create a virtual assistant or virtual avatar, and you can pass the knowledge and data from the actual person who can't be there, I think this may be an interesting use case. And this is one of the niches, one of the technologies. It's so-called afterlife care. So this is one of the niches I would probably focus on.
I mentioned trust just now, right? Influences, sometimes. Why do influences exist? Because people trust them. If you put an avatar there, sometimes, this person's not using the product actually, it's just fake. So you lose that trust. Trust is what keeps me awake. I mentioned earlier, right?
Any
as this generative AI and these kinds of technologies become mainstream, what is it going to do with the relationship between the brand and the agency? Because brands can as well replicate what the agency is doing.
I think that's a very interesting thing. Many years ago, I heard one of big FMCG brands, right, where programmatic marketing, about 10 years ago, came to be. Miguel probably knows this brand, but I don't want to say it out. They said, "Oh, we're going to bring programmatic in-house," right? Because what's programmatic? Programmatic is data, technology, and people, right? The people part is where you come up with strategy, you help decision making. the platforms, the technologies, what automates the buying and bidding in data, is, to find the audience and what have you. What happens? And when they did that, good luck to you. Why? First thing, you bring in house. We all know how rapidly technology changes. Right? Who's going to maintain it? Are you going to put millions of dollars into white labeling this technology and expect it to stay relevant in 2-3 years? Number two, people. The advertising agency, media agency is notorious for losing people because people move all the time, right? Because they get bored. It's just our character, maybe.
Second
Not
highest
really, right?
turnover industry in the world.
Yeah,
Second
yeah.
highest
Highest turnover, right?
Second highest
Second
after
highest.
tourism.
Yeah. So are you sure the people you bring
People's
in
business.
to do this is going to stay with you? And if you lose these people, what's going to happen? And if you don't want to lose them, you're going to continue to pay them above market rate. Is that sustainable? So, yeah.
But then having said that, generative AI has got the potential to learn.
Yes.
So, even as you
The assumption is learning, and again, the professor can correct me. You can learn it to the stage where you can pivot very quickly, right? Trends change, habits change. I mean, just COVID, right? 10 years ago, when I said use QR code, everyone in Singapore said, oh no, QR code, so leceh lah. I'm going to bring up my phone, I'm going to scan it. When China, all the baggers in China are using QR code to collect money, right? When COVID hits, government said you must use QR code. Everyone does that, but Professor.
Use the QR code.
QR code, right? So I know what you're saying. You say self-learning and what have you, but there are always dependencies, I think. Right? Who's going to train this machines?
I just want to add one more point, because my first 100 days in Somin, I spent meeting 100 different companies and brands and agencies in the region, not just Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia. And surprisingly, I mean, most of the comments from the agency side was like, wow, I mean, this technology can actually replace us completely, because the brand will just log in, enter their competitors, and get full insights analysis, which is powered by like 20-30 developers of Somin and like more than 5-7 years experience in that. But surprisingly, on the other side, when I spoke with different brands, the brands usually told me, I mean, not all the brands, but some big ones, they told me like, we don't need this 100 pages deep insight report, we just need 1 page, which tells us like what we need to do. And usually this is the agency who understand this report and process it, and understand also the context, understand like the previous campaigns, how it works, and basically put the human factor to it. So again, I think—
And usually that's an agency who actually do that, eventually. And it's
Yes.
a very important role of the agency.
So I think, although we all talk about like AI and how the AI is going to replace it, no, in fact, the agency should just embrace any technology, use it, and the brands will be more than happy to deliver a more successful campaign and get promoted and get higher returns and higher profits. So I think it's nice symbiotic relationship.
I think the other thing that we spoke before, the things that was actually cultural difference sometimes can create biases, unintended stuff. I always get, when I was publicist, obviously global agency, so I got global, we have global best practice for you, because they thought that's what I want to hear, right? And every time when I look at that, I said, this is not going to work in China, this is not going to work in Japan, this is not going to work in Vietnam. Global best practice according to who? Right, so I think as well, until at a time where AI is able to ingest take the right data.
We were once bringing GNC in Japan, and GNC realized that red and black doesn't really work when all the rest food supplements are very colorful and shiny. And that was a big problem till they decided to completely rebrand just for Japan in order to get the sales picked up. And a very similar thing has happened, for example, with Amazon. Japan is the only market where Amazon had to change their user interface to fight with Rakuten. And with GenAI, we can process multiple languages very easily, because don't forget that GenAI, particularly large language models, they are the grandchildren of transformers, which are translators, which is Google Translate created to do better translations. And that's why, it's killing 2 birds in 1 stone. It helps you to do cross-border easily, but it also helps you to summarize the data so they can get insights, and you as an user, as a human, make a decision. And I think that is a role. We are decision makers, but of course we should use the help of all the technologies that is emerging.
Any more questions, or the very last one, because I think Alex wants to show something in order to.
Before he lets the pizza go.
Yes.
So as we know, GenAI has quite a lot of So as we know, GenAI has quite a lot of environmental impact and carbon footprint. So I'm just curious to know how SOMIN AI manages that.
We are actually having ESG initiatives. So first of all, we really care that, so we try to every time participate and contribute, even being a startup still, now I say. But even if you're looking at the computing perspective, all those things, I think generally AI is one of the heaviest users of all the servers around, right? So I guess it's very important to use it with care. So what we have a directive to make sure that the servers that we are using and also the processing powers that we utilize are not according to, let's say, how much credit Google gives to us, but according to the real needs. And I think this is very important to take the resources in conscious. And there's many other companies who are even further issue carbon credits for this. I think this is also will be the future pretty much, right? Maybe you'll do less analytics in SOMONITOR, and then in exchange, gonna get some credits in the future. This is really the trend. This sounds maybe a bit futuristic, but I think in a few years that would be pretty much the norm that we will have to all be prepared now.
So you do some big processing in SOMONITOR, then you need to grow some trees. Okay, Alex, I think your side. Yeah, thank you once again for joining for this presentation.
Yeah, so
we have the later sharing session of the business, so you can catch up John, because again he has so many stories to share.
we were already showing this part, right? So I just wanted to show a couple of tricks how we found some media agencies are using it, right? So for example, this is high engaging content by Universal Studios, and this, let's say in creative agency case, this information could be passed to a content production team. But what you could do as a marketer is actually take this and, for example, use it as a screenshot to pass to your favorite large language models. Or you can go to personas and combine them together. So for example, here we get a perspective study, right? So we had this different personas: adventure enthusiast, community connector, adventure seeking, social, and a few more, right? So you can see that brands, they are not equally competing. For example, this green brand, Gardens by the Bay, completely not communicating in adventure seeking social people, and that could be an opportunity for them. So if we go into the description of this, we can actually pick it up as well as something that will help your favorite large language models to make decisions. And you can put that as a data, as an input. So instead of getting a very vague response, which you would usually get, because it's trying to make an average of the whole world knowledge, you are getting quite a lot of information for large language models, even like in the form of this screenshot. You see this one of the persona description, and then another one is their actual best performing content for Universal Studios. So now let's say I'm okay, let me look at here. Let's say I'm a Gardens by the Bay, and I want to write some engaging post targeting these personas that I'm not utilizing yet, and I want to get the best practices of the content. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to prompt that here. So what I'm saying is use the analytics provided to generate 3 engaging posts for Gardens by the Bay social page. Make sure that you utilize the analytics of the best performing post attached, and target it to the persona described on the second screenshot. So usually, if you wouldn't just put this. Then it will start generating some content for you. Oh, it doesn't have information, right? Okay, you will remove the last part and just ask this. It will generate some general content from you, right? Something that almost never going to be accepted for production. That almost never going to be used. It's a very vague. It hallucinates a lot. But another story is actually to ground this and try to generate it based on analytics. So very often when you do so, it actually helps you not just to generate the stuff that is going to work for you, but also helps you with connecting that caption or that particular post or SEO that you're doing directly to the analytics that you had. So for example, it has generated these 3 posts based on their analytics about the best performing content and one of these personas that I have taken. So this already can be brought directly to a decision maker, let's say on the client side, or if you're working in a brand, to maybe to your management or just to yourself, and you can have direct implication of all this analytics into the content that you produce. So you actually know why the content looks like this, and this becomes very helpful. In fact, some of our agency partners told us that this kind of content get improved 2 times as more often as compared to the content that the copywriters produce. Because copywriters that produce the content, very often they don't have time to analyze based on what, but in this case, they actually get all the information here for them. So this is just a short place of what these things can be do, and we invite you all try it out by yourself. We release it to the public for free, right? So that's why the session is very, cherry-picked. We don't invite everyone. We invite marketeers. We invite people who can leverage it. In my home country, we say the fire is a very good helper, but not a very good master. So I think GenAI is exactly the same thing. It helps you to analyze data such a way you can make a very good decisions. But you don't want it, write social posts for you. You're going to be scolded by your boss, by your client, and you're not going to get good engagement from those posts. And I think this is our vision. This is how we are building the system. So, Vitaly, maybe you can just talk a little bit about this, and then we can go to the pizza already.
I forgot what I wanted to say, but in general, test it, try it, because again, we show it to 100 different companies, brands, agencies, again, in all, I think 5-6 different Asian countries, and 90% of them told that there is a definite value. The question is, first, whether you can get this value, and whether you can test it, and whether you can implement it. Because ideal case for us, we are working with a few big companies now, what we propose to them, we told them, give us the customer you want to analyze, we'll provide you the report, and we'll provide you the platform, and you'll get insights if you see the value. And if we say hours, tens of hours, or maybe weeks of work. And this is actually how we work with few big agencies. They have a big pitch, they come to us, and we work with them. So if we manage to do that, then please consider using this platform, because it's not just one project, it's many projects basically, and you can get insights and understanding how the whole industry works.
So put your names there, we will get in touch with you. And thanks so much for coming. There's a very nice pizza behind, and we are all here, so let's spend the rest of the time just mingling there. John, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
It's really a pleasure for us to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks for your
Thank you.